Hi! Welcome to the 3D Pen Den. It's almost Halloween again. So let's make something. First, we'll obviously need filament and 3D pen. And then a template for a mask. You can draw your own or go to the 3D Pen Den Etsy store. The link is in the description. And get this printable set of 4 masks. Plus a bonus circle and an oval grid, should you want to design your own. Then we'll need a face. I'm sure you've got one. But in this case, it is nice to get a spare one. There is a lot of blank masks in all craft stores. It is not entirely essential, but as you will see later, it helps. Try to get one that fits you well and is sturdy and waterproof. If you don't have one of those, just get some head-size round container like a big tin or, in our case, a metal wastebasket. The convenience of having these printable masks is that you can print a spare copy of the one you're planning to use, cut it out, and test how it will fit you, especially if the eye holes are in the right place for your face. That way you can readjust it a bit so it will be customized to you, and possibly print it a bit smaller or bigger as needed. Lastly, we'll need a 3D pen friendly work surface. I use plexiglass sprayed with matte acrylic finish. If you need to know more about that, I have 2 videos on that subject down in the description. Make sure you tape your pattern securely to your surface so it doesn't wiggle on you while you work. And we are good to go. Let's start simple. If you want to get obsessive about it, you can use a metal ruler for the long lines. But just tracing them by hand works just fine too. Now it's time to test it, either on your spare face or your real one, or both. If it fits, you can just choose to stop right here. Because the texture of this pattern is so loose, it will stay flexible enough to wrap around your face with just a tiny pull of the elastic that we are gonna attach to it. Here it's a bit rough and scratchy. And you can keep this part on the outside and ignore it. Or I will show you how to smooth it in a minute. But the point is that you can decide to be done right now. Thread the elastic through at about an eye level and choose not to fuss over it anymore. You are good to go. Or you can choose to fuss over it some more. Because this is not yet 3D. It is flat and wants to stay that way, like a stiff sheet of paper. It would be way better if it was curved. Also, there is that matter of some parts being a bit rough and scratchy, remember? Both are entirely fixable with just a few minutes of baking. Here is a sample of unbaked versus baked. It may not come across on the video as a big difference, but you can see the baked lines are a bit straighter and shinier, and the knots turn into these beautiful shiny little jewel-like pools, which makes the joint points way more secure and stable. So let's fix both of those problems in one go. We will smooth and form all at once. I like to bake on a ceramic tile lined with a Teflon baking sheet. But if you don't have that, you may have to use parchment paper. Just don't put it straight on your baking surface or you won't be able to lift it. I bake this at 450 Fahrenheit for about 13 minutes. But take that as a starting point only. You may have to adjust that depending on your equipment. While it's baking, we'll set up and stabilize our bucket so it doesn't roll away. And if you need more instructions about baking 3D projects in general, there are some of my previous baking videos in the description. Monitor it closely. If you don't have a light in your oven, use a flashlight to watch for just the right stage of melt. When you take it out, it will be stuck to the liner. So that's why you need one, to be able to lift it all at once and wind it onto our forming bucket, or tin, or pot, or whatever you use. Give it a bit of time to cool, and then you just peel it off, and it will stay curved all by itself. As you can see right here. It's holding its curve very nicely. And to get even better fit, you can alternatively form it even more precisely on that spare face we talked about earlier, if you have one. In which case you boil some water. Here I have a different mask, which I smoothed by baking it first, but just cooled it flat instead of wrapping it around anything. Your water doesn't need to be all the way to the boiling point, but definitely hot enough that you will need rubber gloves to handle this. I will try to soften just mostly the middle part, where I want it to form around the eye sockets and the bridge of the nose. As you can see, I can get way more detailed fit with this method. By now you are asking, why am I not drawing with my pen straight on the curved mask? Well, you can do that too, provided your mask is made of something that can take the heat of the pen. But you won't be able to smooth it by baking, because that can be done only to flat parts. Plus, there are a couple of other reasons, which I will mention later. In the 3D Pen Etsy mask patterns, there are 4 designs. But that doesn't mean that what you see is what you get. There is more. The most obvious variation is adding an extra line between all the ones on the pattern, which will make a denser, richer looking design. Just keep in mind, the more solid your mask will be, the more post-processing you will have to do to get the surface nice. So watch what you sign up for. Also, you can obviously edit some stuff out. I rather like how this mask partially covers the mouth. But if you want to wear it to a party where you're planning to eat and drink, you may want to edit the mouth accordingly and skip making it so high. You will find you can see just fine through the mesh, even without the eye holes. and therefore do a whole bunch of veil-like variations without worrying about the placement of the eye openings at all. Now, briefly back to why I'm working on the flat surface versus straight on the curve of the mask. One reason, it's just way easier to work on the flat, and more importantly, it allows for designs that extend from the face out into space above the head, for example, like here. And if the black rather disappears on these parts, you can always work these parts in a different color to show better. So have fun with your masks, whether it is for Halloween, Mardi Gras, cosplay, or your next stage or film production. And until then, go and make something.